The Heat kicked off a 3-game road trip in Cleveland, facing a huge Cavs rotation that presented some matchup issues for Miami. But the difference was Kevin Love's 23 points off the bench, a hard-fought effort for the Heat, and we'll break down what went right and wrong. All that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Tuesday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However, you may be listening on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. This episode is brought to you by Truebill. Truebill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need, and can even negotiate better deals on those you want to keep. Wes, the Heat got some good news on Monday as the team wasn't further impacted by the health and safety protocols that kept Caleb Martin and radio personality Jason Jackson away from the team and out of the lineup. They were taking on a good young Cavs team that features a huge starting lineup, as I mentioned before. The Heat struggle against Cleveland's size, unable to get into a shooting rhythm all night, and yet they were able to stay neck and neck with Cleveland for most of the game. But it was Kevin Love coming off the bench for 23 points in the second half, 5 of 8 from three-point range, and each one of those a dagger to kill Miami's momentum, and eventually the Heat just couldn't get it done. They lose 105-94 to drop to 16-12 on the season. Yesterday we talked about Miami finding some kind of a rhythm, being able to find some things that they could do consistently well without Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo in the lineup, and yet they couldn't get any of those things going versus Cleveland. What went wrong, Wes?
Well, that's a lot of daggers for Cleveland and not enough ascots for the Miami Heat, I guess, is the moral to the story tonight. It was, to me, just a tale of the three-point shooting tonight. I actually thought that both teams came out and played well. I didn't think that the Heat played noticeably worse than they did in their last two wins against Milwaukee and Chicago. They didn't play, but they didn't have Caleb Martin, just one less body that you have. You don't want to be counting on Caleb Martin this much in December, but you are. Jimmy Butler, no Bam, all that stuff, and you look at the Heat, they went 13 for 40 from three-point range, 32.5% versus the Cavs, 16 for 36 from three-point range, 44.4%. You mentioned the big Kevin Love numbers. That was it, right? Like, that's so many of these games in the middle of a regular season just sort of come down to, hey, are you getting 28 points from Caleb Martin tonight? Well, then you get the win. Hey, are you getting 23 points from 44-year-old Kevin Love, or however old he is now, off the bench tonight? Yeah, then you get the win. A lot of that kind of stuff, it just works out that way. Miami's starters, I thought, did an okay job against Cleveland starters. Yeah, the Cavs' length is sort of a loud thing that I think a lot of fans could pay attention to. Oh, the Heat don't have enough size. They weren't getting to the paint enough or whatever. It was what it was. The Heat starters got a bunch of clean three-point attempts that just didn't go in. Duncan Robinson 1 for 7. Gabe Vincent 2 for 4, but all that stuff was in the second half for him. The bench couldn't hit a 3 for their life. Strus 0 for 4, Herro 0 for 3, Yurtseven 0 for 1, Apollo 1 for 4 from three-point range. Some of that's on Miami just missing open looks. Some of it's on Cleveland for playing good defense. But we got to rethink the way we think about the Cavaliers now. They're a good team. They're a legitimately good team. And this was always going to be a hard win to get on the road, and even more so with all the injuries and things that the Heat were facing and the lack of good three-point shooting.
Yeah, Miami had just faced the Cavs team, was it over a week ago or just about a week ago, and was beat down pretty severely by
37. They've lost by the Cavaliers by 37 points combined these last two games against them.
Yeah, it's a good team. I don't want to undersell exactly how much of a difference maker the Cavs size is, because it does change Miami's approach offensively. They were able to mix in some attacks to the basket in the last couple of wins. Those avenues weren't really open to Miami, at least early on. It seemed like they were able to make some more crisp passes in the second half as they kind of got more familiar with some of that size, having Jared Allen and others kind of occupy the paint. Isaac Okoro, as you mentioned in yesterday's episode, starting at the 2 for the Cavaliers, presenting some matchup problems. They mix and match a lot of it. You can take advantage of, say, a Lauri Markkanen, but as far as Evan Mobley or Allen or Okoro, those are some pretty big guys. Yeah. And I think it does force Miami into different rotations, having to do things differently to find their points. We talked about this in yesterday's episode. I thought they were going to go more towards the mid-range and be able to exploit that to some degree. somewhat more difficulty not having Jimmy or Bam out there. Tyler was the guy that I thought would really be able to exploit that to some degree, but unfortunately, he took a contusion after getting a knee from Kevin Love in the right thigh area and just kind of didn't look completely 100%. We'll talk about Tyler a little bit later on in the show because he was a guy that a lot of people were hoping could step up. Unfortunately, limited by injury. They did get some positive performances by Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker. I think that really carried the Heat starting rotation to a huge degree. It did a really good job. Tucker in particular, who again we'll talk about later on, continued to find a way to thrive. Is it just a 3-point shot then? I mean, is it just a matter of miss or make in this league, as we've talked about so often?
I mean, yeah. If we want to go big macro view, it kind of is. But I don't mean to undersell the Cavaliers' size or what they do. And this is what has made Cleveland so interesting this season. They're now what 17-12 now. I mean, they're
better record in Miami.
It's a better record than the Heat. That size, you're starting Larry Markkinen at small forward. You've got Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. You mentioned maybe getting off those mid-range shots and trying to get those bigs on the move. The problem is that those bigs are all really mobile, right? Like they can move up and down. Markkinen can get taken advantage of. Like Jared Allen isn't a guy you necessarily want switching onto the perimeter, but he could do it good enough, better than a lot of guys his size. Evan Mobley is one of the best defensive big men in the league already, which is pretty wild. And this is the thing that a team like the Cavaliers, when they just do it different, right? They just do it different than every other team. And so I think most fans don't really understand how little preparation goes into every game in the regular season, right? You just sort of you run your stuff, you adjust your stuff. Spo had the big film session last Tuesday. They adjusted some of their stuff, but you're doing very basic scouting reports on the other team. Don't let this guy shoot from three. Don't let their top scorer go left. It's stuff like that. But as far as like, hey, let's run out like a practice squad with 3 big men starting at the 3 front court spots and let's see what we could do against. They're not doing that in the regular season. I think the Cavaliers, if they make the playoffs, they're going to lose. They'll lose in their first playoff matchup because I think like tonight the Heat would have came out in game 2 and been like, all right, this is exactly how we're going to attack these different matchups. You do that. You game plan specifically in a postseason like that. But in the regular season, they're just weird. And a lot of times weird is good in the regular season, results in regular season success. And so I think going forward, the Heat, you need your best players. Obviously, you need to match length with length. The Heat had they were playing really small a lot of this game. There were instances where in order to counteract their lack of length, they were playing KZ Okpala and Omer Yurtseven together in the front court, which is something that I don't think that they've done all season up until tonight.
Can't recall, no.
Yeah, and so they were trying different lineups. It didn't really work. But again,
they had to. There's no depth on this team.
Exactly.
I mean, injury, Caleb already in health and safety protocols. There's only so much you can do. You have to find some solution off the bench. And again, as you pointed out, just one made 3-pointer off the bench on a night when you really needed some of that perimeter shooting. You do get some okay points from Tyler, 12 points, going 6 of 15 from the floor. Yurtseven went 3 of 7 from the floor. So that's okay production. You just needed a little more from a guy like KZ Okpala, who unfortunately regressed a little bit. He was exposed. There were moments there where he could have hit a big shot down the stretch to kind of help Miami pull away or at least close the gap between Cleveland a little bit more. Unfortunately, wasn't able to do so the way he had in the last couple wins. Just a tough loss, but not demoralizing, right?
No, not demoralizing. Not a blowout either. The Heat could have stolen this game. It was a 5-point game with 7 minutes and 43 seconds left, and I thought this was the swing moment of the game. They're down 5 with midway through that fourth quarter, and the official. And this is not a blame the refs thing, but the official doesn't allow PJ Tucker to check in for KZ Okpala, and with Tucker standing at the scorer's table just waiting to check in, the Heat give up 2 defensive breakdowns in a row, one of which was KZ Okpala's fault. And a 5-point game then was an 11-point game midway through the fourth quarter by the time Tucker checks in. And the Heat never really got close after that. I thought that was really where that game, and Kevin Love hit one of his many 3-pointers during that little 6-0 spurt by the Cavaliers while PJ Tucker was trying to check in. So I thought that was really the swing moment of the game. That's where 5 points, you could do that, especially with PJ Tucker out there. He could have obviously helped them, but then 11 points with that little time left with an offense that was just struggling most of the night. It was just too much.
Well, we talked about having to pair KZ and PJ so that they could kind of balance it out. Opala plays so much better with Tucker on the floor. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get that opportunity in that key moment there, that key possession, and it kind of cost Miami there. Again, I don't know. Not that exactly a demoralizing loss, just a confounding one. And also, look, I have to point out, as far as the officiating is concerned, Miami, uncharacteristically, even without Jimmy and Bam, only 9 free throw attempts the whole game. It wasn't like there were a lot of fouls being called. The Cleveland Cavaliers only shot 18 free throw attempts themselves, going 17 of 18 at the line. Miami just 5 of 9 from the free throw stripe. So that could have been a little bit of a difference maker. But, again, you can't rely on the officiating. You can't rely on free throw shooting unless you're a guy like Jimmy Butler or Bam or James Harden or somebody who gets to the line as consistently as they do. It's not a part of this team's identity or offense. You need to hit those shots, particularly because there were so many wide open ones that you should have been able to knock down. Strus, Yurtseven, Herro, everybody had wide open looks at some point. They couldn't just knock those down. But we'll give out our player grades in the next segment. But first, just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Truebill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? Because it's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped save them over $100 million. You could be next. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now to truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. That's truebill.com/lockedonnba.
All right, boys and girls, it is time for player grades. Let's jump right in with PJ Tucker, the hero of the game for the Miami Heat. 23 points, 9 for 15 shooting, 5 of 8 from three-point range, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He had a block. Just an abs in 35 minutes. Just a masterful performance by PJ Tucker. The only reason the Heat were even in this game throughout the entire first half was because PJ Tucker just making it rain from the corners. I believe all 4 of his threes in that first half came from the corners. All 5 of his threes, I think, in the game came from the corners. He's shooting 42% going into this game from the corners. That's going to be even higher. 91%, 92% of his shots, 3-point shots overall all season come from the corners. But he was just getting it done all over the place defensively. Eric Spoelstra said after the game, I'm paraphrasing here, David, but saying basically, I know I always say that I want PJ Tucker can guard 1 through 5, but if it were up to me, I would have 5 PJ Tuckers to guard positions 1 through 5 because he's that good. Not to delay the grade here, David, but he gets a B+. Why doesn't he get an A? You might be wondering. Well, we have a rule here on Locked On Heat. In a loss, nobody gets an A. It's my rule.
That's okay. That's a new one. I haven't heard it yet, so that's good.
That's because you're not listening, because I said that last week, but that's fine.
Did you? All right. Maybe
but
you did.
PJ Tucker getting a B+ for tonight.
I'm distracted by the tie. I couldn't quite focus there. Look, you're right. I can understand why he doesn't get the A. He did everything he possibly could. I know a lot of people were commenting, me being one of them, on the 7 field goal attempts for PJ Tucker in the first half. We talked about this. You tweeted it out. Being the beneficiary of a lot of that clogged lane, right? A lot of drive and kick situations, not to paraphrase John Crotty here, but, without those open avenues in the painted area, they had to kick it out. And PJ Tucker was there and he was able to capitalize on those opportunities, knocking down those corner shots. But he was also mixing up his offense, creating opportunities for others with those 5 assists. And the floater continues to be a marvel. I don't think I've ever seen him miss a shot this year in the floater. But I know he has, but I can't recall when it's happened. It's just another phenomenal performance from him. We've talked about him a lot. He's been great. I don't know what else to say.
It's a good point. A lot of people saying, why is PJ Tucker your number 1 option? You're never going to win a game. Now, he wasn't the number 1 option. He was the beneficiary of kickouts, and that's just what Cleveland is going to do. Their size is going to force teams. Going back to what you were talking about with the free throws, you're just not trying to get to the lane when you see Jarrett Allen, Larry Markin, and Evan Mobley standing in front of you. You're just like, you know what? Maybe I'll just kick out, not try to get to the basket. Our next grade is for Omer Yurtseven, and he's getting a big old Mickey Mouse glove because just soft hands. It kind of looks like a chef's hat, actually. That's not great.
Yeah. No,
uh,
I like it. I like it. It does. You got the little lines there. That's Mickey Mouse-ish enough. For Omer, yeah, just continues to forget that he's not a 7-footer sometimes. Not. I hate to use because it sounds derogatory, right? You say that guy's soft out there, and you start to get into all sorts of questions about his manhood and
He's
things of
not
this.
soft emotionally. He's just playing
Yeah,
with soft hands. That's all we're
that's
saying.
right. That's
Mickey
right.
Mouse hands. Mickey Mouse
He
gloves
does
out there.
he's not particularly aggressive at times, and he has the skill set to be that kind of aggressive, to be able to take advantage of that size out there. And I know he's still kind of figuring out his footing. Like there have been lots of pieces about him over the last couple of weeks. I talked to him last week at one point before a game, and just you expect him to be able to figure out this timing. He told me that he was getting it, that he understood what his role was and things of that sort. But I kind of question that. Now, that's not to say that he played badly. He was missing some great looks that he had a better opportunity to capitalize on. He also played some pretty solid defense at times. He could still be taken off the dribble, of course. He's a little slow-footed, but as a help defender, that length is particularly helpful because he was able to block a couple shots and just impact some plays at the rim too. So inconsistent game, but yes, the soft hands I think is a problem for him.
Yeah, just a couple times where there was just an opportunity for him to just go up and dunk it with both hands or do something like
Oh
that, and
boy,
he's settling for these little floaters or layups or whatever. And look, I don't
I've got
think, to
soft
your
touch.
point, I don't think it's a soft mentality. I think this is
Right.
something that NBA players, when you come from college or from whatever level nowadays, to the NBA, you have to get accustomed to the increased strength, the
Yep.
increased length, and the increased speed that you are going to be playing against every single night. And when you're kind of going up slow or not very strong, and you're just getting, there was one instance where he tries to go up and he just has the ball swatted away from him. Like
Right.
that's an instance where coaches on film are gonna be like, hey, you got to hold that ball stronger and you got to bring it up from your hip faster for you to
Mhm.
go ahead and finish that with a two-handed dunk or something, just with a strong finish. That stuff comes with time. I don't think he's weak. I don't think he's soft. I just think he has to get adjusted to the strength and the pace of the NBA game. All right, here's
Good
our
point.
final one. Tyler Herro is getting a Band-Aid here. That's not bad. That's a pretty good
That's
Band-Aid, I think.
Yeah, no, I could see it. I could see it. And you
Uh,
did that right now on the fly like that. In
I'm doing it.
between listening to me talking and answering questions, you're coming up with this incredible artistry. You're like the
I'm
Basquiat of Locked On Heat.
Yeah, it's not quite as, like, impressionistic as Basquiat, I don't think, but it's fine.
Whatever.
Um, it's,
Whatever. It's an
uh,
art history class here.
no, it's definitely not. Tyler Herro, 12 points, 6 for 15 overall, over 3 from three-point range. We mentioned the injury there. This is just an opportunity for us to talk about it. I don't really care. This game it doesn't matter for Tyler Herro.
It's in
We
the
can talk
rearview
about
mirror already.
it's in the rearview mirror, and now you're looking forward, and the biggest question with him is he healthy? Because in that first half, he takes that knee. He's driving into the paint, takes a knee into the right thigh from Kevin Love,
Right.
and comes up limping after that, noticeably
Yep.
in pain. Stays in the game for about 3 more quarters after that. He played
Yep.
a little bit. He played a couple minutes in that fourth quarter. He goes to the bench. Eventually, goes to the locker room. He's not
Yeah.
on the telecast. You don't see him on the bench there.
No.
After the game, I asked Eric Spoelstra about it, and he said, "Yeah, he's diagnosed right thigh contusion, where he's going to be evaluated in the morning to determine whether or not he'll be available for Wednesday's game."
Yeah.
And that's the big question here. But before we get to that, David, I mean, just in general, do you think he should have stayed in after taking that knee to the thigh in the first quarter?
We saw this from Jimmy Butler too. I know there's that mentality. I'm sure Tyler kind of has it as well, where you've got to be able to play out there. He wants to be able to play, especially when the team's already as shorthanded as they are.
Mm-hmm.
It probably didn't hurt as much. Like it hurt initially, but then the adrenaline, the energy, and everything else, you kind of put that in the back burner. And then it doesn't really tighten up until after the half when you're just sitting there. You're trying to, do some therapy on it. It's just not enough at that point in time. And then eventually you've been playing 30 minutes and it starts to really pack up on you. I don't think he asked to sit out. I don't think Spo knew exactly how bad the injury was at first, or I'm sure he probably would have taken him out because Tyler was unfortunately mostly ineffective even when he was out on the floor. And I know you've got to play somebody, but I don't know that Herro was exactly the answer
Right.
to. As far as to your question though, what happens next with Tyler? Like who steps up if he winds up having to miss Wednesday's game against the 76ers?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back down to who you got. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Duncan
Nobody.
Robinson's got to get going.
Yeah.
That's who it comes down to. No, you're not going to take Tyler Herro out after a bump. You're not going to take every basketball player out when they suffer a bump or a bruise or something. There was times where PJ Tucker gets flattened by his screen trying to fight over it, or Kyle Lowry falls to the floor on a layup. That happened then a couple times, and a couple times ooh, that doesn't look good. He stays in the game. He's healthy as far as we know right now. You just can't take out NBA players when they suffer like that. Like you said, you rely on Tyler. Hey, if it's bothering you, tell me that you need to sub out and go to the locker room. We see this all the time in the NBA, but you're not going to preemptively do it, especially when you're as shorthanded as Miami is. And even in the middle of a December game, you just don't do it that way. So I don't think anybody should be blaming Eric Spoelstra for keeping Tyler Herro in. That's just the way it is. If Herro wanted to come out, and I think you're exactly right. Once the thigh is hit with Kevin Love's knee, the contusion is there. It doesn't really matter if he keeps playing or not. It's more of a pain tolerance thing at that point. And the adrenaline and everything is kicking in at that point. So now he'll sleep on it overnight. It'll probably hurt worse in the morning. But yeah, that's it for Tyler Herro.
No, yeah. If you need somebody to step up, it could have been Duncan. It could have been Max. Yeah. We wouldn't even be talking about Herro's injury if one of them had just been able to hit 2, maybe 3 more 3-pointers. It wouldn't have been that big a deal. It would have kept Miami closer. Maybe they would have felt a little bit more momentum. Maybe they wouldn't have just kind of taken their foot off the gas late in the third quarter or midway through the fourth quarter after that crucial play that you mentioned about PJ not being able to check in. But anyway, we'll move on and we'll answer some of your listener questions in the next segment. But first, just I want to talk about a new sponsor for the show. That's Stance. You've probably heard about them before. You've probably seen some reviews about some of their products. They handle all kinds of new comfortable socks and underwear. It's super soft, entirely unique. It represents a radical reinvention of sock, underwear, and active apparel with a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity. Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self-expression, because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. They've got all these different partnerships and collaborations that they're working on, from the Wu-Tang Clan to Batman, the Goonies, Star Wars, Harry Potter, one of my personal favorites. Of course, they've also got Major League Baseball, and for you NBA fans, I imagine listening to this show, you might want to check out Stance too. They're great. The socks are super comfortable. You won't be
David, I wore them to a wedding this weekend. I have
great for dancing and drinking.
That's and looking fresh, looking good for a wedding. Like, I love Stance socks.
Absolutely, yeah. It's great. You'll love them too. So make sure that you try them out, because they believe in the perfect fit. That matters more than fitting in. For those who feel good, do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. Speaking of less ordinary, you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge, but you switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Get 3 unlimited data lines for $30, $30 a month per line, and a free 5G phone when you switch, so you can get the latest episodes of Locked On Heat. All in one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. That's Boost Mobile. Free phone is limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverage not available everywhere or for all phones and networks. See boostmobile.com for details. Just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLOHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show and leave a review. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a bunch of new subscribers over the last week. All of our episodes topping thousands of views. Can't believe that you're all turning out, but so much. We appreciate it so much. All of you have been so fantastic, leaving great comments, questions, feedback on the show. As always, again, please subscribe and continue to send that feedback, because we rely on it completely. We appreciate it. We want to hear from you. We are always looking to make this show better. And just a reminder that also on Wednesday, when the Heat take on the Philadelphia 76ers, we'll be closing out the game with a live show. We'll be, again, recounting the last few minutes of the game and then launching to our podcast immediately after that. So please log on. Make sure to send in questions, comments. We'll be taking your feedback at that time as well. But let's get into some of our listener questions about tonight's game. This one comes in from Steve. Can we find a way to get Kevin Love on our roster, please? Wes, what do you think?
Look, this is one of the names that we've been talking about as
Forever.
A potential buyout candidate this season. And you're right, for the last few seasons, he just seems like an ideal fit for the Miami Heat. Somebody who could space the floor next to Bam Adebayo and all these things. He's a veteran. He's a champion. And the Heat, this front office tends to go after those kinds of guys. The problem is I don't know that Kevin Love gets bought out anymore. He's not really a buyout candidate. The Cavaliers are really good. They have a better record than Miami right now. Kevin Love wants to win. He's winning right now in Cleveland. Are the Cavaliers a real title contender? No. Are the Heat a fringe title contender at this point? Yes. The Heat have a much better chance of winning the championship than the Cavaliers do. I just don't know that Kevin Love is going to be so motivated to negotiate a buyout and potentially leave some money on the table just to try to win a championship somewhere else, as long as he's actually winning games and enjoying himself, certainly a lot more than he was the last couple of years in Cleveland.
Yeah, a lot of people saying this is kind of like an audition for him, showing off to Miami what he can do. Look, the Heat already know what he can do. They'd like him at an affordable price. Unfortunately, he's not a trade candidate because of the incredible contract that he's due, not just this season, but the next as well. And I don't see any reason why the Cavs would say, yeah, we want to pay you $50 million over the rest of this season and next, just so you can go play on a better team. He's contributing to Cleveland. They're winning. Miami, again, a better chance at contending for a title. But I don't know that the Cavs want to pay him tens of billions of dollars just so he could play elsewhere and maybe even knock the Cavs out of the first round. That's exactly the end goal for them. This next question comes in from R.E. He writes, it seems, or I'm sorry, he or she writes, they write, it seems like if we make our threes, we win. If not, we lose. Shouldn't there be other ways to win games? Wes, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, that's why you have Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo on the roster. Unfortunately, when they're not playing, it kind of does come down to that. And by the way, like I said earlier in the show, kind of is that in the NBA in general, especially if there's a disparity the way it is between Cleveland and Miami on Monday night. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And that's the way it has to be. I asked Eric Spoelstra again about the 3-point shooting after the game. He said, look, I'm not telling them to jack up shots. We want to get good looks, but for the most part, we are. And the Heat have they've taken 40 or more threes in each of the last 3 games. I think that's by design because you're not getting those mid-range. You don't want Max Strus and Duncan Robinson taking threes. You don't want or mid-range shots. You don't want role players taking those shots. That's what Jimmy and Bam do. When your stars are out and you're kind of relying on these role players outside of Kyle Lowry and Tyler Herro, then yeah, you're going to take more threes. That's just what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I kind of feel like I don't know what else to say. Maybe a couple of those shots fall and everybody's feeling hunky dory about tonight's game. It felt flat. I don't think it was that big a deal. But you're right. You're kind of limited in the ways that you can knock off a team. You're not living and dying by the 3, except because you don't have Bam and Jimmy to create those other kind of offensive opportunities. I think that dictates a completely different pace of the game, one that Miami is much more likely to win. So you know what? We'll just put this in the rearview mirror. The Heat already have. So should you. We'll be back tomorrow for another episode. You know, Markieff Morris continues to be out of the lineup. So we'll be getting some medical expertise to provide some insight on that whiplash injury and what it could mean for Morris's long-term projection. But we'll also be, again, back here on Wednesday night for a live taping of the show as we finish out that game against the 76ers. So make sure you continue to make Locked On Heat your first listen every day. And as always, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure you also subscribe to Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.